Welcome, friend, wherever you're listening from, your bed, your sofa, your favorite quiet place. We invite you to slow down, take a deep breath, and let time slip away for a while. Tonight, we journey not through palaces or battlefields, but down muddy roads and through wind-worn villages, where the war came quietly and stayed loudly. This is how peasants saw the war, not through scrolls or songs, but through firewood, lost sleep, missing sons, and fields that never quite grew the same again. Before we begin, I'd love to know, which moment in this story stays with you the most? Tell us in the comments, even one word, a smell, a sound, a face you imagined, because this isn't just a history lesson, it's a memory we're building together. So if something here feels familiar, that's no accident. It's the world remembering itself through you. Now, close your eyes, let the wind carry us back to the days when war wore muddy boots, and the people who watched it come and go never forgot how it felt when silence returned. The war did not begin with fire, but with silence. A silence so deep it rang louder than any bell. The peasants felt it first, not in words, but in wind. In the way the birds flew lower, in how the dogs barked without knowing why. They were not kings, not knights. They were the ones who tilled the soil, baked the bread, and buried the dead long before the battle ended. They did not write the histories, but they remembered every shadow that passed through the wheat. This is not a story of banners and glory. It is a story of worn hands, empty pots, and quiet hope, of children who stopped playing, and then, one day, played again. This is the story of how war came to the edge of a village, how it stayed, how it left, and what it forgot to take with it. These are the days seen through the eyes of the forgotten, the unspoken, the ones who survived not to be remembered, but simply to begin again. Welcome to How Peasants Saw the War. The morning fog rolled low over the fields, thick enough to blur the tree line. Roosters crowed, but their calls were muffled, as if the land itself was holding its breath. At the well, buckets creaked and voices whispered. Something was wrong. The wind had changed. Even the dogs barked with unease. And on the far ridge, where the road turned to dust, a line of riders slowly formed. The elder, old Tomlin, stood at the edge of the green with a hand above his eyes. His back was crooked from years of haymaking, but his sight remained sharp. He said nothing, just squinted toward the horizon. Others gathered behind him. The potter, the shepherd, the tanner's boy. No one spoke. They simply stared. Riders on the high road could mean anything. Trade, nobility, or war. By noon the riders passed without stopping, but left behind a chill. Their banners showed no sigil the villagers knew. One bore a black lion, another a twisted flame. The last was blank. The silence they left in their wake was louder than hoofbeats. Chickens stayed close to coops. Children were called indoors. The blacksmith bolted his shutters. Not a single laugh rang through the village that night. Old Tomlin gathered the villagers beneath the willow tree near the well. "They'll be back," he said plainly. "They never passed through just once." A murmur moved through the crowd, thin and anxious. A child clung to her mother's skirt. Someone asked, "Should we hide the grain?" Another asked, "Will they take the boys?" The elder only nodded slowly. War eats what peace grows. The village knew stories of war, not from books but from scars, a burn on a thatcher's hand, a limp in the priest's walk, a chapel rebuilt from ash. These were their histories, not of kings, but of men who took and burned. War didn't come with trumpets here. It came with taxes, with conscription, with famine. It came in hunger's face and hunger's fists. That night, a storm rolled over the hills, but no one slept. Rain tapped the thatched roofs. Thunder groaned like far-off cannons. In one cottage, a mother whispered stories of peace to her children, though her voice trembled. In another, a boy sharpened a stick with a rock, pretending it was a sword. In the dark, fear found many forms, some silent, some singing. At dawn, a cart arrived from the east, pulled by a mule with patchy hair. The driver wore no boots and spoke little. In his cart were sacks but no food, only soot-covered clothes, broken tools, and 3 burlap-wrapped shapes that didn't move. The villagers said nothing as he passed. He didn't look up. What he carried was enough explanation. War had already touched someone. Behind the chapel, the priest lit candles for strangers. "Let the Lord carry them," he muttered, his fingers trembling. The wax dripped onto old wood, forming tiny rivers. He wiped his brow and looked out the window, where the trees swayed in a wind that smelled of iron. "God help us all," he whispered, though none but the flame could hear. The baker's boy, just 10 winters old, found a cracked helmet by the stream, dented, rusted, still damp. He brought it to the elder, proud. "Look what I found." The elder took it gently and turned it in his hands. A bloodstain lingered on the rim. "Don't keep this," he said. "Let the river take it back." That night, the boy had nightmares he could not name. The next market day was nearly empty. The traders who arrived did so with guarded eyes and reluctant words. "Roads aren't safe," one muttered. Caravan was burned near Hareth's crossing. Another had no salt left to sell, only dried beets and silence. Coins changed hands quietly. No one bartered loudly. Even the wind seemed cautious among the stalls. Mothers began sewing extra pouches into tunics, places to hide coins or herbs. Fathers carved hidden compartments in cartwheels, not to smuggle goods, but to keep them from soldiers. They remembered the last war, how grain vanished, how women wept in the wheat fields, how men returned with hollow eyes, or did not return at all. Children asked questions. Why did war happen? Who started it? Were we bad? The answers were slow in coming. "Because kings want more than they need," said one father. "Because borders don't matter to hungry men," said a grandmother. "Because someone far away forgot we're people," said the shepherd. The children did not fully understand, but they remembered the tone. In the meadows, the goats began to wander less. Animals feel what people try to ignore. Crows gathered in larger flocks. Frogs croaked more loudly at night. A fox was seen sleeping near the village oven, unafraid of man. The world tilted in ways no one could measure, but everyone could feel. Nature knows when blood is coming. The smith, known simply as Merrick, began forging more than plows. He shaped hooks, nails, and iron bars. Nothing he made resembled a weapon, publicly, but those with coin asked quiet questions. "Could you make something sharp?" Merrick didn't answer. He simply handed them a horseshoe and nodded once, slowly. There were no swords here, not yet. A distant fire turned the sky orange one night. Too far to hear screams, but close enough to taste ash on the wind. The villagers stood in silence outside their homes, watching the sky burn. No one spoke. Even the priest said no prayer. They just watched, as if looking too long might summon the same fate. When the next rider arrived, he did not bring news, only demands. 10 sacks of grain, 5 goats, 2 strong boys to carry supplies. He wore a patchy uniform and a dented helm. "By order of the crown." The villagers gave what they could, not out of loyalty, but survival. The boys chosen did not protest. They hugged their mothers and walked away. Ikishi. Old Tomlin carved marks into the chapel door. One for each conscripted, another for each death. He did not say what the marks meant aloud, but others began to count them. First 3, then 7, then 11. The wood filled slowly, then quickly. The chapel became more grave than sanctuary. A girl named Lisa wrote songs no one sang. She etched them on scraps of cloth hidden under floorboards. One told of a prince who laid down his sword to farm barley. Another told of a knight who refused to burn a village and was buried for it. Lisa's father told her to stop, but she didn't. Not even when he burned one of her verses. The well water turned sour one morning. No one could say why. Some blamed a corpse upstream. Others said it was a sign. The healer tried herbs, but nothing worked. Buckets came up smelling of rot. The villagers dug a second well in secret, praying it wouldn't be found by those who would take even that. More strangers passed through, refugees, deserters, pilgrims. Each brought stories, none brought hope. One man claimed the king's castle had fallen. Another said it stood stronger than ever. A third claimed the king was dead. The villagers stopped asking. Truth was just another weapon used in war. A tree fell without wind near the edge of the fields. Split down the middle, old and strong. Some said lightning struck it. Others said it was a sign from the old gods. The elder walked around it twice, placed a stone in its hollow and whispered, "We hear you." Then he left. No one dared move the tree. The dogs no longer barked at strangers. They just growled low and deep, backing away instead of defending. Even animals seemed to understand the shift. A village that once welcomed travelers now watched them through cracked shutters, hands on door latches, bread hidden in rafters. The priest's sermons grew shorter, less about salvation, more about endurance. "He who survives shall find peace in the end," he said one Sunday. He didn't mention heaven, just rest. Even God, it seemed, had grown tired of war. A woman gave birth during a thunderstorm. The midwife used a dull blade and cloth torn from her own skirt. When the child cried out, the room fell silent. Not for joy, but for fear the sound might travel. The baby was named Mira, which meant peace, in a forgotten tongue. But no one spoke that word aloud anymore. The war changed the rhythm of daily life. No more singing in the fields, no more children shouting near the stream. People walked slower, heads low, as if carrying invisible weight. Even the roosters crowed less. Dawn came quietly, and each day felt like borrowed time. The village bell cracked. A thin line ran down its side like a wound. It rang once, faint and crooked, then never again. Some said it was a blessing. It would no longer call soldiers. Others wept, for the bell had marked every birth, death, and prayer for 3 generations. One morning, the baker found a note nailed to his door. It was smeared with ash and signed only with a black thumbprint. It said, "The harvest is not yours." He didn't speak of it, but that day he baked no bread. The oven stayed cold, and the scent of wheat disappeared. Boys once trained by chasing geese now trained with wooden sticks. Behind barns they struck trees and called themselves knights. They shouted old battle cries half remembered from songs. But when a real sword was shown by a traveller, they all went silent. Play became memory, and memory became fear. The healer's hands grew stiff with age, but she still moved from door to door. Boils, coughs, fevers. She treated them all with roots and whispers. When asked why she never left, she said, "Even sickness flees from war." She was the only one left who smiled, though her teeth were few. One autumn day, the leaves turned red overnight. A child asked if the trees were bleeding. No one corrected her. The world had become poetry, and not the kind sung by minstrels. It was the kind written in scars, in silence, and in what was no longer there. Smoke was seen again, this time from the west. A row of cottages had burned in the night. No one knew whose. A flock of birds rose from that direction, shrieking like wounded spirits. The next day, a stray cow arrived in the village. Its flank was singed. It carried no brand. The mill stopped turning. The stream still ran, but no grain was left to grind. The miller packed his stones and left before sunrise. He didn't say goodbye, just left behind a single bag of flour, as white as snow, tied with a piece of blue ribbon. A quiet gift. A soft farewell. A boy found a boot in the field, half-buried, mud-caked, laces torn. He tugged it out and found the bones still inside. He dropped it and ran home. That night, his mother lit a candle and left it in the window. Not for the dead man, but for her son's dreams, now haunted. A woman painted black circles above her door. Some said it was a charm. Others said it marked her as a witch. No one challenged her. When her crop stayed untouched while others failed, the whispers began. But fear breeds tolerance. And even the superstitious prefer survivors. Once a knight did pass through. His armor was polished but dented. He asked for water, then offered nothing in return. He spoke of distant battles, of banners torn and princes lost. But when he left, the well dried for 2 days. The villagers said nothing. They simply waited for rain. A dog howled every night at the same hour. No one knew why. It was tied, fed, unharmed. But each night, as the moon rose, it howled toward the woods. Some began counting the howls like clockwork. On the 7th night, the sound stopped. So did the counting. No one asked why. Children were told new bedtime stories, not of dragons, but of staying quiet. Not of heroes, but of hiding. One tale spoke of a boy who made a noise and was taken. Another spoke of a girl who buried bread and saved her village. Fear became the new folklore. Graves appeared near the tree line, marked only with stones. No names, no crosses, just stacked rocks in careful circles. Some said they were for strangers. Others said the villagers buried shame there. Either way, they were never touched, even when firewood was scarce. Lamps were no longer hung at crossroads. Too much light brought danger. Shadows became safer. When travelers came at night, they knocked softly, sometimes calling names that belonged to the dead. Few doors opened. Those that did so with blades in hand. The taxman came with a book and 2 guards. He pointed at fields, animals, tools. He didn't ask, he wrote. The guards didn't speak, only watched. When he left, he took 2 carts of goods and left behind a promise. Next time you'll give sons. The ink bled on the pages. A wedding took place in the barn. No music, no feast. Just hands held and a vow whispered over hay. The bride wore brown, not white. The groom had no shoes. But they kissed like the world might end before morning. And everyone wept because love was still possible. The tanner's hands were stained forever. He once made fine boots for merchants. Now he crafted slings, straps, and crude armor. He never said where the leather came from. Some pieces were smooth, others had marks that looked like human scars. He worked late into the night. Each day became the same. Wake, work, watch. Wait time no longer moved in hours or days. It moved in firelight and footsteps, in the way a door creaked, in how long it took to boil roots, in how many times you checked the path for prints that didn't belong. A man returned from war, but not whole. His leg was gone. His voice was gone. Only his eyes spoke now, and they said more than sermons ever could. His wife met him on the road. She didn't cry. She simply touched his hand and walked him home without a word. A famine began not with hunger, but with silence. The fields failed quietly. The river slowed. The hens stopped laying. The bread became thinner. Soup was stretched with bark and weeds. And still, people said little. Hunger was easier to bear than fear. The village cat, once plump and proud, wandered farther each day. She brought back mice, then rats, then nothing. Her ribs showed. The children stopped chasing her. One day she left and didn't return. The next day a fox was seen in her place, and no one shooed it away. The stars became a kind of calendar. The elder taught children to track time by their rise and fall. When the red one fades, the frost will come, he said. It gave them something to count besides the dead. Even fear needs markers, or it becomes too heavy to hold. A pot cracked over the fire and no one replaced it. Clay was scarce. The potter had vanished weeks ago. Meals became smaller, cooked in bent pans or hollowed stones, boiled roots, dried nettles, bark tea. Hunger simplified things. Taste was a luxury few remembered. One child began collecting feathers, not for decoration, for stuffing. Her mother used them to patch cloaks and bedrolls. She called them quiet treasures. One day, soldiers passed, and one plucked a feather from her hand. She didn't cry. She simply stared until he left. On the longest night, no one lit a fire. Even the healer said, darkness is safer. The village held its breath. Babies did not cry. Dogs did not bark. All that moved was the wind and the memory of what had once been songs. That night felt longer than a season. Old Tomlin died in his sleep. His daughter buried him at dawn, alone. No priest, no hymns, just stones placed in the shape of a sun. He had always said the sun would save them. She wept for the sun, not him, for its absence, for what it had watched and done nothing. The trees grew strange that spring. Leaves came late, branches twisted like grasping fingers. Birds nested lower to the ground. The healer said the forest was grieving. The farmer said it was cursed. Either way, no one entered without a prayer, whispered in the old tongue. A woman disappeared. Her shoes were left by the edge of the woods. A trail of berries led into the trees. The villagers searched for a day, then stopped. Some say she fled. Others say the forest took her. Her husband placed berries on the step every morning after. Children played war, as children do. They stacked stones like castles and tossed sticks like spears. But one day they tied a ribbon to a pole and called it a flag. An old man tore it down. Flags bring fire, he growled. The next day the ribbon was burned in silence. When spring finally came, it brought no flowers, just rain. Endless thick rain that turned paths into rivers and homes into puddles. The healer said it was cleansing. The tanner said it was drowning. The priest said nothing. His robes smelled of mold and defeat. Some villagers began fasting on purpose, calling it holy. Others called it surrender. But hunger made saints of many. Silence became prayer. Breathing became thanks. A single bean shared between 3 mouths was a sacred act. Even starvation had its rituals. A rumor spread of a nearby rebellion. A farmer who struck a knight, a village that pushed soldiers into a well. The stories varied, but they gave the people something to say, something with teeth. Even false courage can feed a soul made brittle by fear. One mother taught her children how to speak without sound. She used fingers, touches, and nods. Words are dangerous, she said, but meaning is always needed. They became so fluent that even in dreams they signed. Silence became their language of survival. The pond froze late that year. Some called it mercy, others omen. Children tested the ice with stones. No one dared skate. A dead goose was found beneath the surface. Preserved, mouth open, wings spread. A warning, frozen in time, perfectly still beneath the thin ice. The blacksmith fell ill. His hands shook. He could no longer hammer. But he taught the shepherd's son how to heat iron, how to temper steel. The boy listened well. Soon smoke rose again from the forge. Hope came in embers, one glowing coal at a time. A stranger arrived with red thread. He sold it for secrets. "Tell me a truth, I'll give you a string." Some refused. Others traded tales. In the end, he left with a bag full of whispered pain. The red threads were tied to trees, fluttering like blood caught in the wind. A goat gave birth to twins. The whole village came to see. They laughed for the first time in months. One child kissed the kid's forehead. The priest blessed it 3 times. "Life dares to return," he whispered, "even when we forget how to welcome it." The healer mixed new potions with wild herbs. They smelled of rot, but eased pain. She taught 3 girls to crush roots and dry nettles. She called them little thorns. One said, "Thorns protect roses." The healer replied, "Roses don't grow here anymore, but thorns do." The wheelwright made a new cart, not for trade, for escape, hidden under tarps. It could hold 4 people and 2 sacks of grain. They smelled of rot, but eased pain. She taught 3 girls to crush roots and dry nettles. She called them little thorns. One said, "Thorns protect roses." The healer replied, "Roses don't grow here anymore, but thorns do." The wheelwright made a new cart, not for trade, for escape, hidden under tarps. It could hold 4 people and 2 sacks of grain. He showed it to no one but his wife. Some nights they stared at it, hands touching the wood, imagining the road ahead, imagining not dying here. The priest carved a new altar, not from oak, but from stone. He said, "Wood burns, stone waits." No cross adorned it, just a circle, unbroken. He no longer preached salvation, he preached patience. Even the longest winter ends, he said, though he no longer believed it. Children began to sing again, but their songs had changed. No rhymes, no joy, just rhythms of work, stacking wood, gathering nettles, grinding bark. One girl sang to her shadow, another to the wind. They sang not to remember, but to survive. On the last day of the hour, a letter arrived, sealed with wax, marked with the crown. It was not opened, not read. It was placed on the fire without a word. The flames curled around it. Whatever it said, the villagers chose not to know. They chose silence over command. When war becomes normal, war no longer came with galloping hooves or shouted commands. It came slowly now, through rationed meals, empty chairs, and songs no one finished singing. It was a wind that never stopped blowing, no matter how tightly one shut the door. The village no longer waited for things to return to how they had been. That world was gone. No more hope for a peaceful harvest or a market day without soldiers. People stopped asking when the war would end. They started asking if they'd live long enough to see it. Fields lay half-ploughed, too few hands, too many taken. The young were gone, the old were too weak. Even the crows walked boldly across furrows. They knew this land was theirs now. No one chased them away anymore. They picked at seeds meant for spring. The blacksmith's forge glowed through the night. He no longer made tools. He made what the villagers called iron peace. Brackets for hidden doors, locks for cellars, spikes for traps. Not to fight, but to slow down whatever might come stomping up the hill. Children no longer feared ghosts. They feared boots. A distant stomp was worse than any shadow. One boy began to mimic the sound just to frighten his sister. Until one night, a real boot followed. After that, even play became quiet. Fear punished curiosity. Bread became a luxury. The baker had only millet and weeds. He called it peasant pie. It was grey, bitter, and chewed like bark. But it kept you breathing. That was enough. Flavour was for stories. Survival was for real life. And this life tasted of ash and root. The healer made soup from bones that had already been boiled twice. She whispered blessings over each pot. Not religious ones, just thanks to the animal, the tree, the soil. Each meal became a tiny funeral. Every spoonful a prayer. The well was watched day and night. One family tried to take more than their share. They were not punished, just shunned. No one spoke to them. That was worse than beatings. In a village this small, silence is exile. Even the dogs ignored their doorstep. A man arrived with a harp strapped to his back. He sang for no one, just himself. He walked the village once, never asking for food or coin. When he left, he carved one word into the chapel's step. Remember. Some said he was mad. Others said he was the only one sane. A child was born with a mark on her shoulder, a dark patch shaped like a crescent. The midwife said it was a gift. The priest said it was a warning. The mother said nothing. She only wrapped the baby tight and refused to let her cry after dark. No one asked why. The pigs began eating dirt. The hens refused to lay. The cows gave less milk each week. Something had shifted. Even the animals felt it. Hunger was not just in the belly now. It had entered the land, the air, the bones of every living thing. The shepherd's daughter started talking to stones. She lined them up outside her hut, gave them names. One was father, another was bread. She fed them nettle soup. Her mother did not stop her. When madness is gentle, it is allowed to live. Songs changed. No longer did they rhyme. They repeated instead. Simple chants. Work songs. One for root, one for rain, one for the wind that takes it again. The children sang in rhythm with their steps. Even play now marched to the beat of sorrow. The priest refused to wear his robes anymore. "Cloth does not make me holy," he said. "I am not holy. I am tired." He preached less and gardened more. He grew onions and leeks. They fed more mouths than his sermons ever did. One girl began painting with mud on stone. scenes of goats and trees, of smiling faces and stars. When asked why, she said, "To remember before." Her mother tried to scrub it off one day, but the next morning the painting returned. Only now the stars were weeping. Men no longer hunted for meat. They hunted for quiet. A deer sighting meant no soldiers were nearby. A rabbit in the thicket meant the ground hadn't been trampled by boots. Wildlife became scouts. Birds became warnings. Every feather told a story. The first snowfall fell too early. Crops were not yet pulled. Some froze in the field. The ground cracked with frost before it should. "Even the sky is angry," someone said. Another replied, "No, it's just done with us." And no one argued either side. The shoemaker stopped making new shoes. He only repaired old ones. "No one walks far anymore," he said. "Where would they go?" His shop smelled of wax, salt, and regret. Children wore patched slippers. Adults wore hope into holes. A man began building a tower of stones in his field. He never explained why. By winter, it was taller than his hut. One day, it fell in the night. No wind, no tremor, just collapsed. The man vanished. The stones remained. No one rebuilt it. Firewood ran low. Trees near the village were gone. The forest edge crept closer each season, like a tide. Some feared it would swallow them one night. The trees grew taller, darker, more silent. Even the birds refused to sing among them now. The village council dissolved. Decisions were made by nods, glances, and the sound of empty pots. Law became whatever hurt the fewest. Mercy became whatever left something behind. The world shrank to one truth. Suffering shared is slightly easier to bear. The sky remained grey for a week. No sun, no stars. Just flat, heavy silence. It pressed on the lungs. Even laughter echoed strangely under such a sky. A woman swore she saw faces in the clouds. The priest told her not to look up anymore. A fire broke out in the grain store, not from war, from a knocked lantern. The villagers put it out with mud and tears. One man threw his cloak over the flames. It caught. He burned his arm. He smiled anyway. "It saved 3 loaves," he said. The carpenter built a new table, not for eating, for burying. It was smoother than any he'd made before. "If we die, we should at least lie in something made with care," he said. It was never used, but people left flowers on it anyway. One man claimed to see visions in the smoke. He said he saw a castle fall and a girl climb its walls. The priest called him mad, but others began asking what else the smoke said. People stared longer into their fires, hoping to see something other than their own fear. The river receded. Not dry, but quiet. Its babble faded like it was listening instead of speaking. Women washing clothes swore it whispered names. A boy threw a stone and said it never hit bottom. From then on, children were told not to speak near the water. The butcher's wife made stew without meat. She called it bone broth, but there were no bones either. Just turnip skins, beetroots, and salt if lucky. Still she stirred it with care. She served it with warmth. Hunger tastes less bitter when handed to you kindly. Someone began leaving bundles at doors, herbs, cloth, carved charms. No one ever saw who. Each bundle was wrapped in red thread. The healer said nothing, but her eyes twitched whenever one appeared. Gifts from shadows. Hope in secret. Kindness without name. A man carved wooden figures and placed them by the road. tiny people, horses, even a king. They disappeared within days. He made more. They vanished too. He never spoke, just carved. When asked why, he said, "If they take these, maybe they'll leave us." Old cloth was turned into paper. Girls wrote poems on scraps of faded linen. One poem said, "Even dust has dreams." Another said, "If you hold breath long enough, you can hear the sky sigh." The priest burned one. The others were hidden in walls. The village grew smaller, not in size, but in spirit. People moved less. Doors opened slower. Voices dropped lower. Even the wind stopped whistling. The world felt wrapped in a thick blanket of waiting, like breath held too long, lungs tight with dread. A woman sang to her dead husband's coat. Each evening she hung it by the fire and hummed softly. "He always liked warmth," she said. No one told her to stop. Her song filled the room like incense. Grief, after all, was a common language. A child found a coin buried in the dirt, silver with a face worn smooth. He showed it to everyone. "It came from before the war," he said proudly. No one corrected him. Let him believe in before. Let him think something still shone beneath the dust. The healer's garden grew taller than ever. Thick leaves, bitter roots. She said war fed the soil strangely. "Blood remembers," she whispered. Her teas grew darker, her potions stronger. Some feared her, others clung to her sleeves like children. At night, the chapel creaked. Some said it was wood, shrinking in the cold. Others said it was the dead trying to kneel again. The priest placed a stone at the threshold each evening. To remind them they're remembered, he explained. The stone was never moved. A trader came selling salt. He wanted a child in exchange. The villagers chased him away with sticks and stones. He never returned, but afterward, mothers kept tighter watch. And fires burned longer near doors. Fear now wore a merchant's grin. The shoemaker stitched a message into a soul. Still alive. He said if he died, whoever wore the shoe would carry the words forward. He began writing tiny prayers in his thread. Quiet words that touched skin but never saw light. He called it Walking Hope. Children built a map from pebbles and sticks. Each stone was a house, each stick a road. They added acorns for soldiers. When one fell, they buried it in dirt. "He won't come back," one said. He was too loud. The game was never laughed at. The well froze solid one morning. A boy cracked the ice with a hammer. The echo rang out too loudly. Minutes later, a deer darted from the woods. Then nothing. "Water is hiding," the healer said. "It waits for the world to calm." They melted snow after that. A man carved a flute from bone. He played at night, far from the houses. The notes were slow and strange. Some found it beautiful. Others found it eerie. One child said the tune made her dreams turn blue. The next night, the man played only once, then stopped. Someone painted symbols on doors, circles with lines through them. The priest tried to erase them. The next day, more appeared. "It's not pagan," the healer said. "It's memory." She drew one on her hand and said, "This means I remember the sun." A raven nested in the chapel roof. The priest tried to chase it. It stayed. One day he spoke to it. "Have you come to mock me?" The raven blinked. The next morning, it was gone. In its place, a black feather lay on the altar. He kept it in his sleeve. Two lovers vanished together. They left no note, only a scarf tied to the chapel door. Some said they went to find a new village. Others said they walked into the sea. Either way, the scarf remained. Each winter, someone added a thread. A farmer found a rusted helmet in the soil. He hung it on a post. Rain filled it. Birds nested in it. One day, a boy painted a smile on the front. The next day, someone added tears. After that, no one touched it. The helmet stood watching the field forever. A child asked if the moon ever cried. His father said yes, when it turns red. That night, the moon rose pale and whole. "She's holding it in," the child said. He left a slice of bread on the windowsill just in case she gets hungry. The healer wrapped red thread around her door. "To hold things in," she said. "Or out." No one asked which. Others began copying her. By spring, the village looked as though it had been stitched together by a giant hand, every knot a quiet wish. A woman had a dream where the war ended. She said the fields grew tall and bread baked itself. Even the sky smiled, she told the others. They listened quietly. Not because they believed her, but because sometimes dreaming aloud is a kind of mercy. The seasons no longer arrived like guests. They came like debts. Winter brought cold without snow. Spring brought wind without flowers. Summer came too fast, too hot, too dry. Autumn was ash-colored. The land had grown tired of trying to be beautiful. Children stopped asking when things would go back to normal. They started asking simpler questions like how long bread lasts or if dreams can be saved for later. One boy asked if war could catch fire and burn away. No one had an answer worth saying out loud. The priest stopped using his name. He said names made him too soft. "Call me brother or nothing." When asked why, he said names belong to those who expect to be remembered. He didn't expect that anymore. He stopped blessing water. He blessed walls instead. One child asked why old people cried more. The healer answered, "Because they remember peace." The child nodded and said nothing else. That evening, he drew a picture of a bowl with no cracks. He called it Before. His mother hung it above the hearth. The bread became smaller, flat, bitter, burned, and still it was treasured. One woman kept a piece from her wedding day, now stone hard. She wrapped it in cloth and kept it beneath her bed. "It was soft once," she said, "like I was." A man built shelves with nothing to place on them. He said they were for the future. For jars of honey, for books, for bowls without cracks. If we have no space for hope, we'll never make room for joy. Others laughed, but one girl brought him a pine cone. A fox began appearing near the well. It never drank, only watched. Some said it was a spirit. Others said it was waiting for someone. It came every dusk and left before dawn. When it stopped appearing, a small child left food there. In case it got hungry in heaven, one day someone rang the broken chapel bell. No one knew who. The sound was thin and strange. It echoed like a ghost remembering its own name. People emerged from houses, stared at the tower, then went back inside. The bell never rang again. The healer planted white flowers in the field. She called them ghost lilies. They only opened at night. She said they grew best in grief. No one picked them. No one dared. They became a symbol, fragile, quiet, alive, despite everything. A hunter returned with nothing but a feather in his cap. He said it was from a bird that only sings before peace returns. The others laughed, but he wore it every day. And when children asked about it, he smiled. Someday you'll hear the song too. The shoemaker died in his sleep. His tools were divided between two boys who didn't know how to use them yet. They'll learn, someone said. The boys sat in silence beside the worn bench, tracing the grooves where their teacher's hands once shaped leather. A woman learned to read using scraps of burned parchment. She taught others by drawing letters in dirt. The priest didn't stop her. The word must survive the war, he said, even if the world forgets us. Soon, the dirt paths became books of dust. A storm came that howled like wolves. Trees fell, chimneys cracked, the chapel roof tore open like parchment. Rain poured onto the altar. The priest knelt anyway. Even ruined stone can carry prayer, he said. He stayed until the last drip dried. A widow kept a diary on bark. Every day she scratched a line. On the day her daughter laughed again, she drew a star. When a neighbor shared soup, she drew a sun. The bark cracked over time, but she wrapped it in cloth. History must be soft, she said. The blacksmith's apprentice forged a ring from a horseshoe. He gave it to the healer's daughter. She wore it on a chain. It won't protect me, she said, but I'll remember who tried. The ring made her feel less alone, and in this war that was worth more than gold. The children held a funeral for a dead sparrow. They buried it in a matchbox, placed flowers, and sang a lullaby. The adults watched from windows, weeping quietly. Mourning anything, even a bird, reminded them how to be human. Someone painted a door blue. The priest said it was foolish. Blue invites spirits, he warned. The woman said, good. Maybe they'll feel welcome? No spirits came. But the door stayed bright through every season, a defiant patch of sky on grey wood. A girl began keeping a dream journal, spoken, not written. Each morning she told the healer her dreams while picking herbs. Tonight I saw green fields. Last night I saw a cat dancing. The healer called them seeds. She said, someday we'll plant them. A man whittled whistles from bone. He gave them to children with instructions, blow this if you're afraid. Most never used them. But one night, in a storm, the sound echoed through the village. Doors opened, lanterns lit, people gathered, the child was safe. The chapel's candle shelf collapsed, wax and glass shattered, no one was hurt. But the sound silenced the village. Then, slowly, one by one, people brought their own candles, new ones, old ones, some half-burned. The shelf was rebuilt, stronger. An old woman taught a child to braid grass. So your hands remember peace, she said. Each braid was thin, brittle, short, but the child kept them in a jar. On her name day, the village gave her ribbons. She added them to the jar. It became a kind of crown. When the first true thaw came, no one celebrated. They waited, watched. But when the creek sang again, someone whistled back. Then another joined, and another. It wasn't joy, not yet, but it was music. And after so much silence, that was something sacred. They spoke less about the war now. It was always there, like fog, but their words turned backward. They spoke of summers with too much sun, winters when the well froze solid, springs when wildflowers grew near the bread ovens. The memories were small but warm. Children sat by the hearth, listening to stories that no longer had dragons or saints. They were about the old baker who laughed like thunder, about the cow that chased a knight, about the tree that bloomed red every May day. They listened like they were drinking water. One woman embroidered a field of sunflowers on an old tunic. "So I remember what yellow looked like," she said. The threads were faded, the cloth rough, but the petals took shape. She wore it on Sundays. It made her look like someone who remembered color. The healer kept a jar of rose petals, dried, fragile. She opened it once a week just to breathe. "This is what joy smelled like," she whispered. She never let anyone else open it, not because she was selfish, but because the memory was too delicate to share. An old man planted apple seeds in the snow. "They won't grow," someone said. He replied, "Maybe not now, but someone will find them." He placed a carved spoon near each one, markers of hope buried beneath the frost. His orchard was a dream written in silence. The priest uncovered an old book beneath the altar. It held hymns not sung in years. He didn't sing them, just read the words softly like poetry. One line said, "Bless the hands that bake, the backs that bend, the feet that dance." He copied that line onto the chapel wall. A child asked what a feast was. The question stunned the adult. So that night each family brought what little they had, a crust, a root, a pinch of salt, and placed it on a cloth. They didn't eat much, but they called it a feast, and the child smiled like it was magic. A couple renewed their vows without ceremony. He handed her a stone with a heart drawn in ash. She gave him a single black feather. "This is enough," she said. They held hands in the rain, barefoot, eyes closed. That night, they shared a piece of bread and kissed twice. One boy learned to whistle a tune his grandmother once hummed. It had no name, just rhythm. He whistled it while fetching water. Others joined in. Soon the village had a song again. No words, just a sound that made people remember moving without fear. A young girl made dolls from straw and wool scraps. Each one had a name from the past: Edwin, Martha, Jorah. She said their souls were old. "They remember the sun," she told the blacksmith. He nodded. "Let them keep it safe until it comes back." At dusk, families began lighting candles, not for prayer, but for memory. One for a lost sibling, one for a smell now forgotten, one for a dream once dreamt. The chapel glowed like a lantern in a storm. The priest walked among the lights without speaking. A boy traced a map in the dirt, showing where the river once flooded, where raspberries once grew, where a doe gave birth near the woods. His father stood behind him and whispered, "Draw the pond too. The frogs used to sing there." The boy smiled and added it. The shoemaker's widow polished his old tools. She didn't use them, just kept them clean. He made shoes for dancing, she told her neighbor. The soles were soft like laughter. She placed the tools on a shelf and lit a candle beside them every Sunday. A woman told a story of when spring came early and the whole village wore flowers in their hair. Children danced around the well. A pig escaped and joined in. Even the pig danced, she said. No one knew if it was true, but everyone laughed, and that was enough. One man grew herbs just for scent. He crushed mint between fingers, rosemary underfoot, lavender along the fence. "I don't eat them," he said. "I breathe them." On cold days he wrapped them in cloth and warmed them by the fire. He called it breathing the old world. Children painted on the walls with mud and ash. They drew sunrises, trees, dogs chasing chickens, stars with smiling faces. "I want to see them even when I close my eyes," one child said. The healer smiled. "Then you've made them stronger than time." A woman wore her wedding ring on a string around her neck. Her husband was gone. Maybe dead, maybe not. She kissed the ring each morning. Her children saw her do it. One began tying string around her own finger. The blacksmith melted a broken plough and made a bell, not for alarms, for morning. He rang it at dawn every Sunday, not loudly, just once. The sound echoed like hope stretching. He called it the peace bell. Some said it hurt to hear, but they still listened. The village began marking trees with chalk, hearts, stars, old initials. One mark meant safe, another meant soup here. It became a quiet language. Messages left in bark, a forest of memory, speaking in symbols when words had grown too heavy. A girl braided grass and tied it around her wrist. She made a new one each day, wore them until they dried and cracked. Then she hung them on the door. By autumn, the doorway was thick with faded bracelets. "They're my days," she said, "so I don't forget I lived them." Someone found a kite in an attic. Torn but whole. They stitched it with linen and let it fly from the chapel roof. Children watched, wide-eyed. "It's writing prayers in the sky," one whispered. No one stopped it. Even when the wind pulled hard, they let it fly. A boy caught a firefly and placed it in a jar. He kept it for one night, then let it go. "It glowed for me," he whispered. "Now it'll glow for someone else." He placed the jar on a windowsill. Empty, but still watched. Hope doesn't always need light to shine. A man built a bench from storm-felled wood. He placed it under the old tree where weddings once took place. No one sat there at first. Then a child did. Then a couple. Then a widow. The bench became a quiet confessional for memories that couldn't be spoken. The healer kept a journal of dreams, not hers, the village's. She asked each person to share one dream. Then she wrote it in charcoal on parchment scraps. Some were strange, some sweet. She called it the Book of Sleep. One night she dreamt someone read it aloud. A woman tied bells to her apron hem. Tiny, rusted, soft in sound. "My mother wore them," she said, "so people knew joy was near." They jingled faintly as she walked. Not enough to startle, just enough to remind. Memory sometimes comes with a sound. A boy carved a flute from willow wood. He didn't know how to play, but he blew soft notes into the evening air. One night, an owl answered. He whispered, "Thank you." From then on, every evening, he played one note. Just in case the owl came back. At the first frost, someone left wreaths on each doorstep, twisted from dry grass and pine needles. No name, no message. Just memory made visible. They smelled of forest and old wind. Some villagers cried, others simply held them close for a while. A girl began collecting round stones. She said they were moon pieces. Each night she placed one near her bed. When asked why, she said, "The moon can't always shine. I keep its missing pieces safe." Her father placed one beside his bed, too. The priest began humming again, not hymns, just soft notes like lullabies without words. He hummed while planting onions, while fetching water, while sweeping the chapel. "If I can't say peace," he said, "perhaps I can hum it." A man used soot and charcoal to draw portraits of people as they once were, smiling, dancing, holding loaves of bread. He gave them away. "I want us to see ourselves not only as survivors," he said, "but as people who once laughed out loud." An old woman kept a lock of her sister's hair tied in ribbon. She brushed it every Sunday. She had the softest braid, she'd say, like corn silk. She never cut her own hair. "I'm saving it," she said, "for her." No one asked what she meant. Children began planting wildflowers in secret. They hid seeds in the cracks between stones, near the chapel, beside the well. When one bloomed, they didn't pick it. They simply bowed. "We made that," they'd whisper, "and it didn't run away." A woman made jam from dried berries and roots. It tasted strange but sweet. She gave it to children and said, "This is how happiness tastes when you've forgotten what sugar is." The children licked their fingers and asked for more. The village dog grew old, its muzzle greyed, steps slowed. One morning it stopped barking at strangers. Instead it lay by the road and watched the wind. A child placed a blanket over it. The next day it was gone, but its footprints stayed for days. The healer crafted soap from ashes and herbs. It smelled of pine, of rain, of something older than sadness. She gave each family a bar and said, "Clean hands can still hold memories." The soap lathered thick, like something soft was coming back. A boy asked what stars were. His mother replied, "The sky's way of remembering us." That night, he counted them until sleep. The next day, he drew them in charcoal above his bed. "So I remember that the sky remembers me," he explained. A man repaired the broken bench by the stream. He placed a carved sun on its edge. "Now it faces east," he said. "So every morning starts with warmth." He sat there daily, drinking bark tea, watching light move across the grass like hope. The priest burned old prayer books, not in anger, but reverence. "Let the words rise again," he said. "Let them find ears in the wind." He watched the pages curl upward. "Faith is lighter when it flies," he whispered, eyes full of smoke and silence. A girl began braiding ropes from old clothes. Each strand told a story. Blue for her brother, red for her favorite apple, green for grass she once rolled in. When the rope was long enough, she wore it as a belt. "I walk wrapped in memory," she said. The blacksmith repaired a rusted lantern, not to light the road, but to hang in his window, so someone passing might remember the word welcome. He never locked his door again. "If danger knocks," he said, "at least it will see I'm still here." A boy found a cracked mirror. He cleaned it with a soft rag. "So we can see ourselves clearly," he said. The reflection was wavy, uneven, but he smiled. "It doesn't matter," he said. "We're still here. Even crooked, we're still us." The windmill turned again, slowly. Someone had oiled it in the night. No one claimed the work, but its soft creaking made people smile. "The wind remembers," one woman said, "even when we forget how to turn with it." One evening, a man lit a fire in the center of the square. Not for warmth, just for gathering. People came quietly. No stories, no singing, just company. Breathing the same smoke, feeling the same warmth. Sometimes peace is just not being alone. A child traced her mother's laugh lines with her finger. "What made these?" she asked. The mother answered, "Sunlight. And once, cake." That night, the child dreamed of cake, sunlight, and laughter so loud it cracked the sky. She told everyone the next day. A widow kept a chest filled with spring things: pressed flowers, green cloth, dried moss, notes tied with ribbon. She called it the memory box. When days felt heavy, she opened it and cried. "I cry so I don't forget the feeling of blooming," she said. The chapel windows were cleaned with vinegar and cloth. "So the light knows it's welcome," the priest explained. One window glowed gold at dusk. People stood quietly watching it. No prayer, just watching, as if waiting for the glass to speak. A man walked the same path each morning, scattering grain. "For birds that don't come anymore," he said. One day, a sparrow returned. He cried quietly and kept walking. He never missed a day again. "Hope has wings," he said, "even if they come late." Children painted stones with charcoal, smiles, suns, and handprints. They placed them in the stream. "So the river carries our happiness somewhere," one child explained. Months later, a trader from far away said he found a smiling rock near a broken bridge. A girl made a wreath of branches and thread. She placed it on the chapel door. "It's a crown," she said, "for the building that keeps holding us." The priest kept it there even through the rains. It sagged, dried, and held on, just like the rest of them. A mother gave her child an empty jar. "Catch the smell of rain," she said. The child ran outside, held it up, sealed it tight. Later, she opened it and whispered, "Still there." No one corrected her. Some even took turns breathing in what could not be seen. A boy carved names into wood, names of pigs, brothers, saints, days of sun. He nailed them to the barn wall. "So we don't forget what we had," he said. When asked what he'd do when the wall ran out, he replied, "Build another one." A man filled a sack with dried leaves and called it a pillow. "It rustles when I dream," he said. His dreams were always of green fields. The healer said she liked the sound. "Even your sleep remembers the forest," she told him. A widow planted carrots and said each one was a wish. When they grew small and crooked, she laughed. "Even wishes come out hungry," she said. She roasted them with salt and told stories of her wedding day while she chewed slowly, smiling at the pot. Someone left painted eggs in the hollow of the chapel tree. Red, blue, yellow. Each one bore a tiny symbol, a sun, a spiral, a leaf. The children called them hope eggs. The tree became sacred again. No one touched them, but everyone checked if they were still there. An old man used ashes to draw a sun on his wall, to remind it where to rise, he said. The drawing faded in rain, but each time it washed away, he redrew it. "The sun forgets," he said. "But I don't." His wall became brighter with every storm. A girl collected buttons and strung them like beads. "Each one heard laughter once," she said. She wore them like armor. On dark days, she added more. Her dress rattled like a song. "I walk in memories," she told the priest, "and they make noise." The healer built a wind chime from forks and spoons. When it rang, she smiled. "Even silence needs company," she said. The children called it the hunger song, but it brought calm. Even hunger, when sung softly, feels less cruel. The priest began writing prayers with his finger on fogged windows. He never repeated the same one. "They vanish anyway," he said. Might as well make them new each time. Sometimes children copied the letters. Sometimes they just watched and nodded. A boy made a swing from frayed rope and an old board. He hung it from the leaning tree near the well. He didn't swing much, just sat. "This is my thinking seat," he said, "where I imagined before." One day, a bird joined him. They shared the silence. Someone wove blankets with flower patterns. Not bright ones, just simple outlines. "So when you sleep, your dreams grow roots," she explained. She left one in the chapel, one in the healer's hut, one on the bench by the river. Memory as comfort. The shoemaker's daughter drew footprints on cloth, big ones, small ones. "The ones we love walked here," she said. She tied them to trees. "This way the forest remembers too." Even animals walked gently near them, as if reading the trails of the past. A man saved raindrops in bottles. "This one fell on my son's name day," he said. "This one after we saw stars." He lined them on a shelf. On hot days he uncorked them and let the cool air out. "You can't drink memory," he said, "but you can breathe it." One morning, the village woke to find stars painted on doors. White chalk. Small, neat. No one knew who did it, but no one erased them. The stars stayed through rain and wind. "Let them watch us," a child whispered. "Let them know we're still here." A couple built a birdhouse from a broken chair. A sparrow came and stayed. "It's singing pieces of old songs," the wife said. They sat on their porch each morning, listening. "It remembers for us," the husband said. The bird was never named, just heard. The stars stayed through rain and wind. "Let them watch us," a child whispered. "Let them know we're still here." A couple built a birdhouse from a broken chair. A sparrow came and stayed. "It's singing pieces of old songs," the wife said. They sat on their porch each morning, listening. "It remembers for us," the husband said. The bird was never named, just heard. One for the woman who plants carrots. One for the bird that sings anyway. The chapel glowed like the heart of something still breathing. The village dug a new well, not for water, but for wishes. People dropped feathers, dried fruit, buttons, drawings, prayers. "This one's for rain. This one's for remembering names." The well never filled, but hope echoed from its empty stones. A boy wove grass into a crown and wore it for a day. No one laughed. He said it was for the Queen of Memory. She hides in trees and touches your shoulder when you forget. The healer kissed his forehead and said, "Then may she bless you often." A woman strung ribbons from her roof to the ground. "When the wind passes, I want it to dance," she said. The wind came softly, tugging each ribbon like a child waking its mother. She stood in the doorway and whispered, "Yes, I'm still here." The final frost came and didn't return. The healer announced it like news from a battlefield. "The earth breathes again," she said. Children ran barefoot. Adults planted beans with trembling hands. The war wasn't over, but the season had changed. At dusk, someone rang the bell again. This time, the village gathered. No words, just breathing together, as the bells sang a soft, broken hymn. Not of victory, not of peace, but of memory held tight, like hands in the dark. Together, still, the ground froze before the leaves fell. That was the first warning. Then came the silence. Birds left early. Frost arrived in the night. And in the morning, even the stream sounded tired. Hunger, they said, comes quietly at first, like a stranger at your window. The last apple fell before it ripened. The healer wrapped it in cloth and placed it by the fire. "Let it think it's still on the branch," she said, but it withered in days. "It forgot," she whispered. "Even fruit forgets what warmth feels like." The sheep's wool came off in clumps. The old ones bleated without sound. No one blamed them. Hunger chews from the inside. When animals begin to look like ghosts, you know the famine has begun. The boy feeding them cried when none came to the fence. The bread shrank. Flat, cracked, bitter. No yeast, no fat, just crushed barley and memory. One woman said it tasted like old footsteps. Another said it chewed like regret. Still they gave thanks before every bite. Even sorrow must be eaten slowly. A boy dreamed of honey. He spoke the word in his sleep. "Honey, honey." His mother wept quietly and kissed his cheek. "Dream sweet," she whispered. "It's all we have." That night, she boiled pine needles and called it syrup. Firewood grew scarce. Doors were pulled apart. Chairs burned. Even prayer books became kindling. "We read them," said the priest. "Now we'll warm ourselves with what's left." He burned the pages gently, one by one, as if letting go of a choir. People stopped counting days. They counted meals instead. "3 left," said one. "Maybe 5, guessed another. When meals became halves, they whispered. When meals became broth, they prayed. When broth became water, they stopped speaking. The stones grew smooth from many hands. They became toys, then pillows, then faith. The rats returned, bold and fat. "They found a better village," someone muttered. Now they came for this one. The traps were remade. Children learned to set them. "We are at war with what eats what we can't," the healer said, "and the rats are winning." Snow came not in flurries but in sheets. It buried the fence. It swallowed the stream. It muffled the screams of the pigs when they were slaughtered. The snow didn't care. It just kept falling, soft as ash, cold as a closed door. One woman ate ashes by mistake. She thought it was salt. "Tasted like memory," she said. No one corrected her. They just passed the bowl and dipped their bread into water thickened with bark. Even error was something to swallow. A man boiled leather twice, then 3 times. He chewed it for an hour, didn't speak. When asked if it helped, he nodded once and kept chewing. Hunger has its own language. It speaks in gnawing teeth and silence between swallows. Children stopped playing. Instead, they sat near the fire and drew food in the ash. Round loaves, berries, chickens. One drew a feast with 12 legs and a pie big as a door. "I'll eat it in my dream," she said, "and wake up full." No one laughed. A dog was found curled by the chapel, frozen. Someone wrapped it in cloth and placed it beneath the bell tower. "He guarded the prayers," the priest said. "Let him sleep near them." A candle was lit, not for the dog, for what he reminded them of. The village sang one song that winter, just one. A slow hum, wordless, like a lullaby trapped in frost. They sang it when someone died. They sang it when broth boiled. They sang it when the wind screamed too loud. It was the sound of survival holding its breath. A child licked ice from the window. "It tastes like clouds," he said. His mother turned away. That night, she boiled bones again. Nothing left in them. Just warmth, thin as thread. "Drink," she said. "Pretend it's stew." He did. Children are better at pretending. The healer brewed tea from bark and hope. It was bitter, but it made people sleep. Sleep through hunger, she said. Dreams are full. Her tea smelled of earth and old things. It became a ritual, one mouthful each night. Then stillness. A man drew sunrises on the walls with coal. Every morning, a new one. Some with birds, some with clouds. One had a loaf of bread rising with the light. We remember forward, he said, so we don't forget what comes after winter. The priest stopped preaching. Instead, he sat beside the fire and listened. Words are cold, he said. Silence is warmer when shared. People came just to sit. No sermon, no song, just breath, just warmth. The chapel became a blanket. The youngest child in the village asked, "What's sugar?" Her brother said, "It's snow that laughs." She nodded. I'd like to taste laughter. That night, he caught snowflakes on her tongue. They giggled until their lips went numb. It was enough. The old woman who made soap died in her sleep. Her hut smelled of pine and rosemary. The healer found a note. I am clean and tired. They burned rosemary in her memory. The village smelled like spring for one night. Then the smoke faded. Someone carved a bowl from ice and placed it on the chapel step. A gift, they said, for whoever has less than us. It melted slowly. People passed it without touching. Even empty, the bowl was honored. Generosity, even imagined, held weight. Children began trading stories like candy. This one has apples. Mine has soup. I've got a feast with cheese. They spoke them aloud, hands shaking, voices thin. But the stories got warmer as they went. Hunger, for a moment, turned to joy. A woman wrapped stones in blankets and placed them near the fire. Warm them like bread, she said. The smell of heat will feed the soul. Children carried the stones to bed. They didn't eat, but they slept longer. That, in winter, was almost a feast. A child asked why the sky stayed grey. His father said, because it's tired. That night, the child drew a blue sky on the chapel floor, using crushed berries. The colour didn't last, but for one day the village remembered what it felt like to look up and smile. The rats grew bold. One climbed onto a table during supper. No one moved. They watched it eat. He's hungry too, the elder said. Let him remember what bread is. When it left, someone whispered, tell the others we still share. The rat did not look back. A girl sang to the potatoes in the cellar. Just 5 left. She called them by name. Edda, Thorn, Bright, Stone, and Hope. She sang lullabies as if they could hear. When one rotted, she cried like she'd lost a friend. Hunger personalizes everything. The chapel bell cracked in the cold. It rang once, then split. The sound echoed strangely, half a chime, half a cry. The priest said, even metal mourns. They buried the pieces in the snow. From then on, silence marked the hours. A boy traded his shoes for a candle stub. He said he needed light more than comfort. He carried it home in a mitten. That night, he didn't light it. He just held it close. I'll save it for the dark that really scares me, he said. The mitten stayed warm. The healer stitched scraps of fur into a blanket shaped like a bear. She gave it to a child who no longer spoke. He wrapped himself in it and growled softly. That night, he slept without crying. You have to become something bigger than your fear, she said. The village dog returned, thin, limping, but alive. It lay near the fire, curled tight. No one asked where it had gone. It had survived. That was enough. The children fed it slivers of turnip. He remembers us, one said. That means we're real. A woman found a carrot in the snow, tiny, frostbitten. She placed it in a bowl and called the village. No one ate it. They just looked. Proof, she whispered, that the earth still tries. They lit a candle beside it and bowed their heads in thanks. A man with frostbitten hands built a snowman with coal eyes and a crown of twigs. For the Hunger King, he said, may he leave us soon. Children added acorns, stones, and flowers of ice. They bowed to it each day, part prayer, part joke, part hope. A mother drew a loaf on the wall with ash. Every time I look, I feel full, she told her child. The drawing faded over time, but each evening she redrew it. It's not about bread, she said. It's about remembering what you're waiting for. A girl gave her father a pebble. It's a dream seed, she said. Swallow it and dream of stew. He did. That night, he dreamed of stew with fat and herbs. In the morning, he kissed her forehead and said, I tasted garlic. She smiled. So did he. A woman made a necklace of dry beans. She wore it like treasure. They rattle like bells, she said, and I feel rich. Others gave her beans to add. The necklace grew. So did her smile. Hunger can't steal my shine, she laughed. The healer found mushrooms beneath an old log. She danced as she picked them. The earth still whispers, she said. That night she made stew, small portions, huge meaning. The village ate in silence, chewing slowly, tears falling gently. One boy collected shadows. This one's from a fire, he said. This one's from a smile. He painted their shapes on paper. When light returns, they'll come back. His wall was covered in black outlines. Memory, preserved in darkness. A man carved spoons from old wood. He gave them away, saying, they remember meals. One had a cracked handle. Another had stars etched on the back. Even when there's nothing to stir, he said, the spoon waits. People wept, receiving them. The chapel grew warmer without fire. People brought wool scraps, feathers and fur. They made cushions and rugs. Warmth comes in layers, the priest said, like stories. The children sat close. They didn't pray. They listened to breathing and silence. A girl found a feather and stuck it in her hat. So the birds think I'm one of them, she said. Maybe they'll take me somewhere warm. She flapped her arms and danced in the snow. Her mother didn't stop her. Dreams are too rare to silence. A man left a single coin on the chapel step. For whoever needs it more, he said. No one took it. Not the first day, not the next. It froze to the stone. A child placed a flower beside it. Generosity, even frozen, gathers interest in spirit. The rats vanished again. Too cold, someone said. Or too kind, said another. They left gnawed corners and silence. The healer smiled. They remembered we let them eat, she said. So they gave us back the quiet. Peace sometimes comes on tiny paws. A child offered her only scarf to the chapel statue. To keep her warm, she said. The wind tugged it, but the knot held. The scarf fluttered for days, then disappeared in a storm. Still people left cloth on the statue. Giving is contagious. One boy gave up speaking. He hummed instead. Soft, strange tunes that echoed like memory. People listened. He sings what we forget, someone said. When he slept, his lips still moved, humming in dreams, telling the sky they were still alive. A woman filled her pockets with snow and walked in circles. Melts slower that way, she said. Lasts longer. Her neighbors offered her cups. "No," she replied. "This is mine, my cold, my water, my way of remembering rain." The healer found an old cheese rind. She shaved it thin and boiled it with herbs. "This is enough," she said. "Flavor is a kind of music." The broth filled 2 cups. Everyone had a sip, and for a moment it felt like a festival. The youngest child in the village placed a stone on the windowsill. "It's to hold the warmth in," she said. When someone asked how, she shrugged. "It just does." The next day, more stones appeared on more sills. Not because it worked, but because hope asks little. A woman stitched faces into her shawl. Smiling ones, round cheeks, closed eyes. "The people I miss," she said. She wore it daily. In storms, she wrapped it tighter. "They keep me warm," she whispered. The thread unraveled, but she never mended it. The wind howled louder each night. Some said it was angry, others said it was lost. One child believed it was singing. He pressed his ear to the wall and whispered, "I hear you." That night, the wind softened, only for a little, but it did. A girl built a tiny snow fort for a mouse. Inside, she placed crumbs and dry leaves. "So he has a home too," she said. No one saw the mouse, but the crumbs disappeared, and each day she rebuilt the walls. "Some homes don't need doors," she said. The healer taught a chant for empty stomachs. "Breathe in thanks, breathe out need." Children repeated it when meals ran thin. Breathe in warmth, breathe out ache. It didn't feed the body, but it fed something deeper, something that waited. A boy carried a stick he called a staff. "It holds me up when I'm too tired," he said, "even if I don't lean on it." Others carved their own. Soon half the village had staffs, some with names, some plain, all reminders that standing is sacred. Someone drew a sun in the ashes each morning, large, round, with wide rays. It disappeared by nightfall, but returned again at dawn. "The sun can't forget us if we remind it," they said. People stepped gently near it, as if afraid to smudge the warmth. The chapel roof sagged under snow. They didn't fix it. They gathered inside anyway. "If it falls, let it fall on prayer," the priest said. That night it held, and the night after. Some said the roof remembered it was loved, others said wood listens. A man carved a spoon that couldn't hold anything, too shallow, too thin. "It's for imagining," he said. "So the next one has something to carry." He placed it beside the fire. No one used it, but they looked at it often, and they dreamed bigger meals. The rats returned once more. This time, no traps were set. "They know the way back," someone said. "So can we." When they left, crumbs remained, small, chewed, but proof. The children cheered. Hunger makes strange allies. A girl built a crown from frost. She wore it one morning, laughing. "I'm queen of the cold," she said, "but only until spring." Her breath fogged in front of her like a royal decree. Someone bowed, then another, then the whole village, smiling. The priest kissed a stone at the chapel's threshold each morning. "Anchor," he called it, "so I remember where my feet belong." One day, a child placed a flower beside it, the next, a feather. The threshold grew into an altar of tiny faiths. A woman tied bundles of herbs to the rafters. "So the air smells like spring," she said. The scent was faint but real. On warmer days it drifted through the room like music. "It reminds the house that life returns," she whispered. Someone started naming icicles. This one is sharp. That's drip. That one's too tall. A child kissed one and called it sweet. The names changed nothing, but it made the edges feel less cruel. Naming, even frost, softens it. A boy built a sled for mice. He placed it near their hole. In case they want to play, he said. One morning the sled was moved slightly. Tracks led to it. No one touched it again. The sled stayed, a monument to imagination that survived the freeze. The healer brewed one final winter tea, roots, ash bark, bits of dried pear. Drink, she said, it tastes like the end of hunger. It wasn't sweet, but it lingered on the tongue like memory. The pot emptied quickly. The room grew quiet, then warm. A couple danced in their hut, bare feet, no music, just rhythm. We danced when we wed, he said. We'll dance to stay wed. Their daughter clapped in time. Even silence becomes song when love moves slowly. Hunger forgot them for a moment. The snow finally melted around the chapel door. Earth appeared, damp, dark, full of scent. Someone knelt and kissed it. It still knows us, they said. It didn't forget. People stood in line to touch it, just once, as if meeting an old friend. A bird landed near the well. Just one. Blue wings, black eyes. It drank and flew away. It'll tell the sky, someone said, that we're still here. No one laughed. They watched the sky for hours after. It stayed empty, but hope had flown. The first green shoot appeared near the fence, tiny, fragile, uncertain, but alive. A child built a wall of stones around it, so the wind doesn't scare it. The whole village came to see, not because it mattered, but because it did. A girl cut her hair and gave it to the healer. For the next blanket, she said. The healer cried. Not because of the hair, but because someone still gave. Even in hunger, generosity can bloom like a weed between stones. That night, the stars returned. Clear, sharp, watching. The villagers stood in silence beneath them. No prayers, no stories, just breath, just awe. After all that cold, the sky had remembered how to shine. When spring came late, the snow melted in pieces, not all at once. First from the roof, then the well, then the stream. But the cold stayed in the bones, like a habit. People kept their coats on, even indoors. The frost is inside us now, someone said. It'll take more than sun to melt it. The first sound of water brought tears. It wasn't singing, just dripping. But it meant the world had moved, that it hadn't frozen forever. A boy placed a pot beneath the drip and said, "I'll feed the roots." No one stopped him. Every gesture felt sacred. The fields emerged as ghosts of themselves, muddy, bruised, bent stalks like bones. Children walked them carefully, as if afraid to step too hard. "They remember," said the healer. "Tread gently." Some still bowed before planting, just in case the ground needed apology. The geese didn't return, not yet. But once a single feather landed in the stream. A girl caught it and whispered, "They still know the way." She placed it on her windowsill. Hope now came in pieces, soft, floating, and easy to miss unless you watched closely. Seeds were counted like coins. One for this hill, one for that row. "They must be planted with thanks," said the priest. "They need to believe in us too." Each seed dropped into the earth like a whispered promise. "Grow," the people said. "Please, grow." A boy found a beet beneath the thaw, tiny, half-rotted. He cradled it like treasure. "We'll cook it," he said, We'll feast." His mother sliced it into 5 thin strips, boiled it with bark. Each person took 1 sip and said, "I remember flavor." The chapel smelled of damp wood and pine. The priest opened the doors and let in the light. "Let the walls breathe," he said. For the first time in weeks, a breeze moved across the pews. Someone whispered, "It feels like waking up in a memory." A woman tied green ribbons to the trees, so the leaves know we missed them. Children helped. Soon the forest edge shimmered like a garden of ghosts. The trees stayed bare for now, but the wind tugged the ribbons like they mattered. The village dog began barking again, at birds, at sticks, at the wind. "He thinks it's safe again," a man said. The dog wagged his tail like he knew a secret. He even rolled in the mud. Children cheered. It was the first joy that sounded loud in months. The blacksmith reopened his shed. Not to make tools, just to hear the clink of iron. "It reminds me I have hands," he said. He hammered nothing. Just let the echo fill the space. "A voice," he said, "for those who forgot we're still here." The first green sprout appeared beside the well. A weed, most said. But it glowed. Bright. Undeniable. The healer knelt before it and whispered, "You're early, but we'll take it." She built a ring of pebbles around it, so no one forgets it was brave. A child dipped a stick in the stream and wrote her name in mud. "So the earth knows me," she said. When the rain came later, it washed her name away, but the girl smiled. "Now the water knows me too." Her mother cried, but didn't let her see. The rats returned, thinner, wary, but alive. "The war didn't eat them," someone said. "Maybe it won't eat us either." No one set traps. They let them scurry past. Hunger had changed the rules. Now, even pests were proof of survival. A girl wove a basket of reeds and placed breadcrumbs inside. "For the birds," she said, "so they come back and sing." No birds came that day, but she refilled it each morning. The priest called it prayer. She called it habit. The truth lived somewhere in between. A man found a cracked mirror in the thaw. He hung it near the well. So we remember what faces look like. At first, people avoided it. Then one by one they looked. They saw wrinkles, scars, grey hair, and they whispered, "Still here." It became a daily ritual. One child refused to speak, not out of sadness, just waiting. When the first blossom bloomed, she pointed to it and said, "Color." Her voice cracked like ice. Then she said it again. "Color." It was enough. She didn't need another word. A woman opened a jar of pickled onions found in the root cellar. "Forgotten treasure," she whispered. She served them on wooden plates like royalty had come. The sharp taste made everyone wince. "It hurts," someone said, but in a good way. Children started chasing each other again, slowly at first, then faster. One game turned to many. Someone fell and scraped a knee. "Blood's back," he laughed. "Real life again?" Even pain, when earned through play, became a reason to smile. A boy played a flute carved in winter. He played the same 3 notes again and again. They weren't a song. Not yet. But they were enough to call the breeze. "I think it's listening," he said. And the village believed him because they needed to. Someone rebuilt the broken bench near the tree. "We need a place to sit with spring," she said. People gathered there every evening. No talking, just looking, just waiting. Trees don't bloom faster when watched, but humans bloom better together. The snow returned briefly, A soft, silent coat. No one cursed it. They just watched. "The last breath of winter?" someone said. A child made a snowball and named it Goodbye. They placed it on the chapel steps and let it melt without touching it. The priest dug a garden behind the chapel, not for food, just for herbs. "For scent," he said, "so the wind has something kind to carry." The first sprout was mint. The children crushed it between their fingers and smiled. It remembers sweetness. A woman found seeds in a jar hidden behind flour. Beans, lentils. She held them like pearls. "I forgot I was wise enough to save these." She planted them the same day. Not because she was ready, but because she didn't want to forget how to begin. Someone painted windowsills yellow. "So sunlight knows where to land," he said. It chipped in days, but the glow stayed. Even the cracked wood seemed to smile. "Color reminds the walls to breathe," he added. "So we can breathe with them." A girl made a crown of dandelions and gave it to the dog. He wore it proudly for 1 hour, then shook it off. "He's too wild for royalty," she laughed. The petals blew into the wind. That evening, the wind smelled of play. The healer set a bowl of water on her windowsill. "To catch sunlight," she said. Each morning she drank a spoonful. "Not for health," she explained, "but so my insides remember the sky." The water tasted like nothing, but still she smiled. A boy planted a stick in the field and called it the first tree. He watered it daily. "You have to believe in beginnings," he said. When sprouts finally grew nearby, he whispered, "Told you." Belief made him taller than the stick. A woman carried a piece of wood shaped like a spoon, though it couldn't scoop anything. "I stir memory," she said. She waved it over stews, soups, even water. "This is the taste of before." People laughed softly, but no one stopped her. The stream no longer growled with thaw. It sang again, soft, calm, curving. Children built boats from bark. "They carry our worries," one said. They named the boats fear, hunger, cold, and silence. The current took them. The children watched them float away. A man found a cracked bell hidden under snow. He hung it near his hut and rang it once. The sound was sharp, crooked, but clear. "A new tone for a new season," he said. From then on, the sound meant one thing. Something was alive. A girl painted her fingernails with beet juice. "So I look like berries," she said. "Maybe bees will come talk to me." No bees came. But she kept painting. Each day, a new color: mud, ash, bark, mint. Her fingers became little flags for spring. Someone placed fresh herbs on the graves. Mint, thyme, onion grass. "The dead should smell what's coming," they said. "So they know we're still trying." The priest didn't argue. Even grief, when shared with the earth, becomes a kind of garden. A boy tied feathers to a stick and called it a broom. He swept paths between homes. "Not for dirt," he said, "for confusion." Adults watched him go, brushing away the invisible. "He's right," the healer whispered. "The road feels clearer now." One child named every puddle. Big ones were pondlets. Small ones were toe lakes. "That one's my reflection pool," she said, splashing gently. When her mother told her she'd get wet, she replied, "I'm waking the water up." The sun came stronger one morning. It touched windows, warmed stone, brightened bark. A woman walked outside and said, "I forgot how light feels like being touched." She stood for an hour, doing nothing, just remembering how not to shiver. A man whittled wooden cups, each one with a tiny groove near the rim. "It's so you sip slower," he said. "Makes the taste stay longer." No one rushed their drinks anymore. Even warm water felt rich. "We earned our sips," someone whispered. Children found old skipping ropes. At first, they didn't remember the rhythm. Then one began humming, another jumped. By sundown, the village heard laughter, real laughter, like birdsong written in breath. Even elders smiled at the sound. The blacksmith forged a tiny sun from scrap metal. He hung it above his doorway. "So even cloudy days remember what brightness is," he said. It caught little light, but enough. People touched it as they passed, like it held warmth waiting to be shared. The first daisy bloomed by the fence. A girl gasped and clapped her hands. "She made it," she said. She pushed through. The flower bent in the wind but stayed. They left it unpicked. It became a guest, not a prize. The priest cleaned the chapel floor with mint water. "So every step smells like beginning," he said. The scent spread. Even those who didn't believe came in. "It smells like something grew here," one woman said. "Maybe us." A woman folded paper stars and left them in boots outside doorways. "Because wishes like to hide," she said, "and feet carry them far." Some boots stayed empty, but most had stars inside by sunrise. No one asked who left them. A boy drew birds on every rock he found. So when real ones come back, they'll feel welcome. The rocks surrounded the well, the path, the steps. Each had wings, beaks, eyes. When real birds returned, they landed near them. Everyone agreed it worked. A child planted sugar beet seeds and sang to them each day. "Sweet dreams," she said. "Wake up slowly." The healer said they wouldn't grow so early. But one morning, green tips peeked through. "They heard me," the child whispered, grinning. The village cat returned, thinner but proud. It jumped on the windowsill and stared in like a king. Someone opened the door. "We're home," she said. The cat walked in like it never left. That night, it slept near the hearth. No one moved it. A man placed mirrors on the trees to remind the forest of what light looks like. When asked why, he said, "It's polite." The trees didn't answer, but in the breeze their branches swayed a little softer. Sometimes reflection is enough. A girl planted flowers in an old boot. It used to carry people. Now it grows. The boot sat near the path, collecting rain. The flower bloomed unevenly, but it bloomed. The boot, scuffed and tired, looked proud. A couple repainted their door, not red, not brown, but sky blue. "So people know hope lives here," they said. The color made others pause. Some touched it, others cried. "If a door can be brave," one said, "so can I." A child built a swing from old rope and a bent board. The first time he used it, it squeaked like a song trying to be remembered. He laughed so hard he fell off. "It hurts to fly," he said, "but only when you land." Then he climbed back on. The healer began marking days again. Not with chalk, but with flower petals. "They dry too fast," someone said. "Good," she replied. "It teaches us to notice them while they're soft." Her walls smelled faintly of old gardens. A man found his voice again, after months of silence. He began humming as he worked, then singing, then shouting greetings. "It's like I'm coming back into my mouth," he said. People echoed his greetings like sunbeams bouncing between windows. A child brought a beet to the chapel. She placed it on the altar. "Because food is holy now," she said. The priest nodded, placed a candle beside it. That night, the chapel smelled faintly of dirt and sweetness, a sacred scent born from the thaw. A boy drew maps in the mud, roads to imaginary towns. "This one has bread," he said. "This one has music." The others added rivers, trees, stars. They stood over their world like gods dreaming of mercy. Then the rain came, and they let it wash away. A woman danced in her kitchen alone. No music, no rhythm, just steps. To remind the walls they once echoed joy, she said. Her feet moved slowly. 1, 2, 1, 2. Even her shadow seemed lighter. The house, at last, remembered warmth. Someone placed candles along the path to the stream. "So the water can find us again," they said. When one candle blew out, a child relit it without speaking. Light led light. Flame followed hope. The stream shimmered like it knew the way back. The blacksmith carved birds into his tools. "So they remember the sky," he said. Even the hammer had wings. Each time he worked, the tools glinted like flight trapped in iron. He called them feathers. He said they made things lighter. A girl planted flowers in a wheelbarrow. It didn't roll anymore, but it held beauty. "Even broken things can bloom," she said. The barrow sat by the road like a traveller who'd decided to stay. People nodded to it like an old friend. The priest took off his shoes and walked barefoot in the garden. "So I can feel the apology of the earth," he said. The soil was cold but not cruel. "It remembers us," he whispered. "And it's trying." Forgiveness begins beneath the feet. A woman brewed tea from pine tips. "It smells like Christmas and breath," she said. She served it in bowls, not cups. Bigger sips for bigger memories. The tea was green, sharp, and alive. It tasted like leaving winter behind. A child laid out stones in a circle. Inside it she placed grass, feathers, and a spoon. "This is a nest," she said, "for anything that wants to be born." It stayed empty. But people added things. A coin, a leaf, a thread. The nest became sacred. A man sat by the river and sang names into the water. Names of those gone, names of those still here. "The river remembers better than we do," he said. When he stood, the names floated downstream like petals. He didn't cry, but the water did. The village cat caught a bird. For a moment, everyone froze. Then it let it go. The bird flew off. "Mercy," someone whispered. Even hunger learned to forgive. The cat curled near the door. The bird sang from the trees. The world softened. A boy made flags from scraps and placed them on hilltops. "To show the sky where we are," he said. Some were torn, some were crooked, but they stood. And when the wind blew, they fluttered like hearts too brave to stop beating. Someone built a tiny fence around a patch of moss. "So it knows it's loved," she said. The moss grew thicker, greener. Visitors came to look. No one touched it. They just stood quietly, letting its softness remind them of gentle things. The chapel bell rang again, once, clear, whole. "Fixed with warmth," the priest said. "And old wire." It didn't echo loud, just enough to say, "We're here." Enough to mean begin again. Enough to matter. Children began drawing suns again, on doors, on stones, on faces. "So the light knows where to land," they said. One girl drew one on her arm. "It'll shine through me," she said. That night, the wind didn't feel as cold. Even the dark paused. A man carved spoons for everyone. He called them starting spoons. "New meals, new stories," he said. Each was different, bent, smooth, knotted, People held them like sacred tools. Some kissed theirs, some just stared, all understood. A woman stitched a new blanket from old scraps. She called it the after blanket. Everything that survived, woven together, she said. She slept under it every night. So did her dreams. So did her memories. The first true flower bloomed, not wild, not weed, a planted one, yellow with soft petals. A child guarded it. It's the first yes, she said. When someone asked what that meant, she replied, the world finally agreed to keep going. The healer scattered seeds in the shape of a star. For whoever comes next, she said, so they know we wanted beauty. The seeds took. Slowly. Green points formed in the dirt. Not for eating, not for selling, just for joy. A boy threw a stone into the stream and whispered, we lived. The splash was small, but it echoed far. A ripple passed over the surface, reaching the far bank. Someone else threw a stone, then another, until the river was full of memory, the work of living. The sun rose earlier now, not in glory but in steadiness. It wasn't celebrated, just noticed. A little more light through the shutters, a little more warmth on stone. It's back, someone whispered. The world's clock is ticking again. The fields were turned, row by row. The soil was cold, but willing. Hands blistered, backs bent. No one sang, but no one stopped. Work was prayer now. Each seed pressed into the earth said, I still believe in tomorrow. A woman repaired the roof of her home with straw, thread, and prayer. This time it will hold, she said. Each patch was a promise, not to the house, but to herself. She didn't smile, she didn't speak, she just tied knots until the wind stopped leaking in. The stream was clearer now. Children fetched water with new buckets, carved fresh from wood. We drink from the same river as our dreams, said the priest. The buckets dripped, but the children laughed. Wet feet, clean faces, full hearts. The bread returned. Not much. Flat, cracked, but warm. The baker cried when he saw the dough rise. Esau, it remembered, he whispered. The village gathered to share. They tore pieces gently. Even crumbs were holy in the season of return. Someone reopened the forge, not the blacksmith, his apprentice. She struck iron like she meant it. Not just for ploughs, she said, but for door hinges, for horseshoes, for what comes next. Her fire was the first to burn after winter. The chapel bells rang on time again, not every day, but on purpose. So people know when to hope, the priest said. The sound echoed softer now, as if even the air wanted to listen. Bells never fought the war, but they survived it. A boy began marking time by chickens. 3 eggs means morning. No eggs means waiting. He fed them carefully. They clucked like they forgave him for forgetting them in the hunger months. Their feathers shone in the sun like little victories. Beduits. The healer planted onions and smiled when they sprouted in a row. Order returns, she said, even if nothing else does. She traced each stem with her finger. Welcome back, she whispered. Her garden grew from memory, not soil. Children played tag between fence posts. You can't cross the mud, one shouted. It's lava. Their laughter rose like birds, startled into joy. The fences weren't done. The game wasn't fair, but the world had rules again. Even if they were pretend. A man rebuilt his wagon wheel with one hand. The other never healed, he said. But he turned the spokes, hammered the rim, fastened the bolts. Still good, he muttered. It rolled slightly crooked, but it rolled. And so did he. A girl carved new spoons. Not for eating, but for stories. This one is for bravery, this one for rain, this one's a promise. She gave them away. People tucked them into pockets behind doors, beneath pillows, a village guarded by tiny myths. The well was deeper now. Someone had dug further during the famine. Just in case, they'd said. Now the water tasted colder, cleaner. Hope comes from deeper places, said the priest. So must we. Every sip felt earned. A woman opened her shutters and began waving at passers-by. So the road remembers people live here, she said. At first, no one waved back. Then one child did, then another. Then the whole village learned again how to lift a hand and smile. A boy started making signs for paths. This way to laughter. Turn left for kindness. Straight on for stew. The signs were carved on wood and tied to trees. People followed them like pilgrims. Even when they led in circles, no one minded. The blacksmith's apprentice built a gate with iron vines. It didn't lock. It welcomed. Not everything needs to close, she said. Some things just need to open slowly. The gate creaked when touched. People began opening it, even if they weren't going anywhere. The grain sacks were filled with caution. Save more than we eat, they said. This time we remember. But still they took out a handful each day for bread, soup, a pinch of porridge. Enough is a kind of feast, said the baker. A man rebuilt a bench under the tree where he first kissed his wife. She had died last winter, but he sat there anyway, sometimes in silence, sometimes in memory. The tree remembers, he said, so I visit it, and we remember her together. Children started calling clouds by name again. That one's a sheep. That one's a king. That one's a pie. Adults watched quietly. Naming sky things made the ground feel lighter. When one cloud looked like a sword, they turned away. The healer hosted a lesson in the garden. This is sage, she said. It remembers wounds. This is thyme. It waits patiently. This is mint. It forgives. Children touched each leaf like a secret. The garden grew stories now, not just soup. A woman wove rugs from old clothes. So footsteps don't echo alone, she said. One rug had sleeves, another had shoelaces. The rugs didn't match, but they softened the floor. Visitors took off their boots. It's nice to arrive gently, one said. The chapel pews filled slowly, not with prayer, just presence. People came to sit, to listen, to breathe. God likes company, the priest said, even if no one talks. One boy carved a star into the bench. No one stopped him. The star stayed. Someone painted the door of their house yellow. Not soft, bright, unapologetically bright. So joy can find us, they said. The door glowed like sunrise. The village called it the lighthouse. Children touched it for luck before running home. A boy fixed a broken chair with twine and bone. It still holds, he said, even if it wobbles. He placed it outside for anyone who needed to sit. It became known as the waiting chair, not because of what it was, but because of what it welcomed. A girl grew tall enough to reach the top shelf. You've outgrown hunger, her mother said. They marked her height with chalk. Spring gave me inches, she laughed. The wall held lines for each child, history written in bones, not books. A man rebuilt a fence, not to keep things out, but to guide them in. The goats need boundaries, he said, so they know where to feel safe. He left the gate open. Even rules need exits, he smiled. The goats returned, so did the quiet. The baker's wife reopened the pantry, not to store food, but to air it out. Mold grows in shadows, she said. She placed flowers inside, dried lavender, a sprig of mint. Let the shelves remember scent. Even emptiness deserves dignity. A boy tied scraps of cloth to sticks and planted them like flags around the garden. Scarecrows, he said. But the birds weren't scared. They landed on the sticks. They think it's welcome, said the priest. The boy smiled. That's fine too. Someone cleaned the windows of the abandoned cottage. No one lived there now, but the sun streamed through anyway. Light doesn't care who's watching, the healer said. It still arrives. The house stayed empty, but the curtains began to move. A girl placed a warm stone under her bed each night. So the floor forgets to be cold, she said. The stone came from the fire. It lost heat fast, but it helped her sleep. A warm goodbye, she whispered. The stone became part of her bedtime prayer. A man built shelves in his hut. Not for things I own, for things I hope for. He placed an empty jar, a folded cloth, a space for a book. The shelves filled slowly, not with objects, but with readiness. You need room to receive, he said. Children began naming insects again. That one's stripy, that one's too many legs. They followed ants and saved caterpillars. One boy carried a beetle for 3 days. It likes me, he said. In spring, even tiny lives feel loud again. A woman combed her hair for the first time in weeks. So the wind doesn't win, she said. Each stroke pulled out tangles, sorrow, silence. When she finished, she tied it back with string. Now I look like I mean to live. The chapel door creaked with use. No one fixed it. Let it speak, the priest said. Old things deserve a voice. The creak became familiar. It said hello, it said goodbye, it said, we're still here. A child planted one seed alone in the field. This one is for fun, he said. Not food, just fun. No one stopped him. When the plant grew crooked and small, he laughed anyway. It's trying, he said. So I'll try too. Someone began keeping time again. Not by bells or sun, but by chores completed. I've chopped the wood, it must be mid-morning. I've stirred the stew, it must be nearly dusk. Hours became useful, not heavy. Time stopped dragging. A woman sang to her sourdough starter. Songs make it rise, she said. The bread didn't prove perfectly, but it rose. Enough to feed 3. Music helps, she smiled, even if the bread forgets the tune. Her voice was hoarse, but full. The children made a new rule. If someone finds a feather, they must make a wish. Wishes were whispered into jars, into shoes, into fists. This one's for sweetness, one girl said. This one's for rain that doesn't scare us. A man sharpened tools with care, not quickly, not angrily, just careful grinding. It's how I remember my father, he said, by the rhythm. Sparks flew, the air smelled of metal and memory. No one interrupted. The rhythm was prayer now. A girl planted flowers where her sister used to sit. So the ground knows she mattered, she said. Daisies. Marigolds. One crooked tulip. They bloomed slowly, unevenly, but beautifully. The flowers leaned toward her hand when she passed. The healer began writing recipes again. Even ones we can't make yet, she said. A stew with meat, a pie with apples, a pudding thick with sugar. Write the feast first, she whispered, and cook it later. The parchment smelled like hope. The village began bartering stories, one tale for a mended pot, 2 for a pinch of salt." "Make it long," one woman said. "I'm trading flour." The children listened to every trade. They were learning the value of voice. A boy whistled every time he walked the path. "So I don't surprise the world," he said. His tune changed daily. One morning, it sounded like rain, another like wind. People began humming it after he passed. Whistling became a sign of peace. Someone left a loaf of bread on the chapel step. No note, no message, just bread. The priest broke it into pieces. "The body of kindness," he said. No one asked who baked it. That wasn't the point. Giving is complete when it's anonymous. A girl wrote the names of flowers on stones and placed them near their stems. "So the earth remembers who's who," she said. The wind moved the stones. The names got mixed. "That's okay," she laughed. "Everyone forgets sometimes." A woman braided 3 loaves of bread into a wreath. She hung it on her door. "A circle of hunger ended," she said. It dried and cracked over time. But the shape held. People began making their own, not to eat, to remember. A boy filled a jar with dandelion seeds. "This is for a windy day," he said. He sealed it tight and kept it on the shelf. On the first day of true warmth, he opened it and let them fly. "They're looking for soft places to land," he said. A man found an old bellows and blew air onto the hearth. "So the coals wake gently," he said. The fire caught, not fast but steadily. Flames moved like breath returning. He sat beside them, warming his hands like they were promises. The war returns in rumors. The first rumor arrived with the wind. "They're marching again," someone said. "West, maybe north." No proof, just a voice passed from mouth to mouth like a secret no one wanted to own. It settled in the fields like morning frost. A traveler passed through. His boots were worn thin. "They took my brother," he said. Again, another levy. He didn't stay long, but his words lingered. People whispered them while sowing seeds like curses hidden in soil. A boy overheard his father say, "We should hide the tools." The boy didn't ask why. He just stared at the hammer, then at the sky. Thunder rolled, or maybe hooves. It was hard to tell anymore. The chapel bell was struck once at dusk, not for prayer, for warning. No one said who did it, but everyone heard, and no one asked why. That night, shutters closed early. Lamps were dimmed. Bread was eaten without butter. A woman stopped humming at the well. "It echoes too much," she said. "Someone might hear." Her silence tasted heavier than fear. It tasted like memory returning, uninvited, with mud on its boots. A letter arrived, crumpled, wet, unsealed. It had no name, only one sentence. "They're coming." Some said it was a prank. Others buried it behind the chapel. "Just in case words carry weight," they said. The blacksmith's apprentice paused mid-strike. "I had a dream," she said. The iron screamed. She didn't finish the horseshoe. The fire dimmed. She tied her hair back and went home early. The tools stayed cold that night. A boy built a trap in the woods. "For rabbits," he said. But the trap was too large. "Just in case," he added. No one questioned him. Caution had become its own kind of game. The priest fasted for 3 days. "To listen better," he said. "God is quiet when men shout." On the 4th day, he spoke a single word in his sermon. "Watch." Nothing more. But the way he said it left the air trembling. A girl began sleeping under the bed. "Just for fun," she claimed. but she lined the floor with straw, tucked a candle near her chest. "It's cozy," she said. Her mother wept, quietly, into a scarf. Chickens stopped laying. The farmer said it was the heat, but someone whispered, "They know." The hens paced more, flapped louder, and no one could explain why the air around the coop always smelled like copper. The baker burned a batch of bread, not by mistake. "A signal," he muttered. He left the loaves out anyway, blackened, hard as stone. One child took a piece and held it like a shield. "To remember what hunger feels like," she said. A man sharpened his scythe longer than usual. "For weeds," he insisted. But his grip was different, tighter. Not just for grass, someone thought. The edge gleamed too much for spring work. Children played war again, but this time no one laughed. They dug trenches with spoons, built walls from firewood. One girl carried a stick like a sword and whispered, "This time we win." Her voice was too steady for pretend. The healer packed herbs into jars and sealed them with wax. Just in case, she told no one. She hid them in baskets, under floorboards, behind curtains. When asked why the house smelled like rosemary, she just smiled thinly. A man nailed boards over his windows. "Sun's too bright," he said. "Hurts my eyes." But everyone knew he was facing east, toward the rumors. Toward the sunrise that now felt like fire. The stream ran slower, muddier. "Upstream is poisoned," someone said. No proof, just a feeling. Children were told to drink from the well instead. One boy still visited the stream. "I want to hear what it's hiding," he said. A letter arrived from the capital. Official seal. Stiff paper. It spoke of loyalty, sacrifice, opportunity. "They want sons again," the elder said. No one offered. No one argued. The letter was placed under a bowl and never spoken of again. A woman started knitting armor, not real armor, yarn. "For my son," she said. "Soft things protect too." The vest she made had daisies stitched on the chest. "So they don't forget who they are," she whispered. The chapel door was locked one morning. A note pinned, "Silence holds prayers longer." No one saw the priest for 3 days. When he returned, his eyes looked further away than the horizon. A young man stood at the edge of the village and stared into the forest. "If I go now," he said, "they won't find me." But he didn't move. He stood there until nightfall, then went home and stacked chairs against his door. A girl stopped speaking altogether. "She's just playing," her sister said. But the girl listened harder now, to footsteps, to doors, to birds. "She's learning the language of leaving," her mother whispered. A farmer drew a line in the dirt around his barn. "Boundary," he said. "Old magic." No one stepped over it. Not even the goats. "Some lines keep out more than wolves," he explained. That night, someone lit a fire too bright. It cracked louder than usual. Sparks jumped high. "Put it out," a voice whispered. "They'll see." But no one moved. They just watched the fire burn, hoping it would scare the dark away. A man began sleeping in his boots. "Saves time," he said, but he left them laced, tight, too tight for rest. His wife loosened them in the night. "So he dreamed softer," she whispered. He never noticed, but he slept deeper. A child made a map of safe places. "Here's the old tree. Here's the quiet rock. Here's under the flower shelf." She kept it folded in her apron. "In case we forget," she said. No one asked why. Everyone remembered something worth hiding. The village elder began teaching boys how to tie knots. "Good for fishing," he said. but the knots looked like loops, like snares. "Just in case," he muttered. His hands trembled, but his knots held. A girl painted her window blue. "So the sky comes in," she said, "not the war." She painted it every week, even as the color faded. Blue streaked her hands, her dress, her cheeks. "I'd rather stain myself with sky." Someone left a goat untethered. "Let it run if it must," the farmer said. "Better lost than taken." The goat wandered, returned, wandered again. "Smart thing," the man said, "knows when to vanish." A woman began baking extra loaves, not for sale, not for hunger. "For those who pass through," she said, "so the world knows we're still kind." She left them in a basket by the chapel. One disappeared each night. A boy sharpened sticks into arrows. "Not for war," he claimed, "for pointing." He lined them toward trees, toward clouds, toward nowhere. But one was aimed at the road, just in case. The healer started writing names in a book. Names of the living, names of the missing, names no one wanted to say aloud. "Memory is its own spell," she said. She read them quietly each night. The pages smelled like grief and rosemary. The blacksmith's apprentice began forging nails again, long ones, thick. "For building," she said. But her hammer moved faster than usual, like she was keeping time with thunder only she could hear. A dog barked for 3 nights in a row, toward the woods, toward the sky. No one could silence him. "He hears the old noise," someone said. On the 4th night, the dog was quiet. That silence barked louder. A boy made a flute from bone. "It only plays one note," he said. He played it anyway, once, twice, then never again. The flute sat on the windowsill. It glowed in moonlight like a ghost listening back. A girl collected buttons. "For armor," she said, "one for each thing I survived." She sewed them to her apron. By summer, it jingled. "This is the sound of not dying," she smiled. The chapel candles were replaced with oil lamps. "Smoke rises too fast," the priest said. "Light should stay close to the earth." When someone asked why, he said, "So it doesn't call attention to heaven." A man covered his well with planks. "They poisoned it before," he said. "Better to thirst than to trust." But he left a hole in the middle, just big enough for a rope, in case it forgives us. Children stopped drawing people, only houses, trees, suns with no faces. "People vanish," one girl said, "but roofs stay." Their drawings filled the chapel wall, a city of ghosts held together by crayon. A woman began carving names into spoons. "So no one takes yours," she said. But the names were wrong. One read, "Peace." One read, "Leave." One read, "Remember." People still used them. They said the food tasted stronger. The priest began ending Mass with the words, "We are still here." No blessing, no song, just that. Some repeated it after him, others whispered it alone. The phrase took root in doorways, gardens, the edge of every bed. A boy refused to eat stew. "Too dark," he said. "Looks like war." His mother made him porridge with berries. "So you eat joy," she said. The red stained his lips like summer. He never looked at stew again. A girl drew eyes on the backs of her hands. "So I see both ways," she said. When asked what she watched, she answered, "Whatever creeps near." Her palms stayed open, her fists stayed ready. A man began sleeping with a candle burning. "I'll pay the wax," he said. "I won't pay the dark." The candle guttered, flared, dimmed, but it burned through every night. The flame became its own prayer. A woman planted garlic in a circle. "Protection," she said, "from rot, from men, from forgetting." The circle grew. Villagers stepped around it without question. Even the goats avoided it. The healer kept her mortar out, ready. "For grinding fear into powder," she joked. But each day she filled it. Sage, lavender, crushed cloves. "Smells like resistance," she said. Her hut was the safest place in the village. A boy made a kite and let it fly low. "Not too high," he said. "The sky might notice." The kite danced just above the wheat. It's enough to be free without being seen. That evening, thunder rolled far off. Not loud, but present. A low, crawling sound like boots over distant gravel. No one said a word. They just looked to the horizon and kept their hands busy. A child whispered to the scarecrow, "If they come, scare them too." She gave it her doll's bonnet. "So they think you're someone's mother." The wind caught its sleeves, and for a moment it almost looked alive. The baker added cinnamon to a loaf. "It's a warning," he said. "Sweetness before loss." The smell reached every door. People knew what it meant. They didn't speak of it. They just ate carefully. A girl lined her pockets with pebbles. "So I leave a trail if I'm taken?" She changed the stones each week. "They get tired," she said. "Like me?" No one touched them. But sometimes people left her new ones. A man set a stool by the road, sat each morning, just watched. "In case someone comes," he said, "or in case they don't." When asked what he waited for, he shrugged. Waiting keeps things away sometimes. The priest began teaching Latin again. "So if letters come, we understand them." But his voice shook on the long words. And when he said mortem, he paused, then whispered, "Skip that one." A woman kept a knife under her pillow. "For cutting bread," she said. But she didn't eat at night. "Still," she added, "bread might come." The blade gleamed in moonlight, silent as breath. Children played in the dust, drawing spirals. "To confuse bad spirits," they explained. They circled the whole square. "Now they can't find us." A rooster followed the path, clucking like it understood. The healer left herbs on each doorstep. No note, just bundles wrapped in cloth. "Time, sage, truth," she muttered. People tucked them into sleeves, boots, corners, for holding ourselves together. A boy watched clouds move. "They travel safer than we do," he said. He named them after people: Anna, Joran, Father. "They're freer up there," he whispered. "They don't get conscripted." A man rebuilt the fence not to keep things in, but to count time. "Every post, one day," he said. When the war ended, he'd stop. The fence stretched long, then longer. Still he built. The chapel door had a new dent. No one knew who did it, but someone placed a flower in the crack. The next day, it was gone, replaced with a note. "Still watching." No one touched the door after that. A woman brushed dust from old clothes. "War might need them again," she said. "Tunics, cloaks, belts." She folded them tight. Not for warmth, for remembering. If they come back, they should see themselves here. The baker's boy left bread on a stump deep in the forest. "For whoever's hiding," he said. It was gone by morning. He left more. Once, he found a thank you scratched into the bark. "Eat slow," it read. A girl tied red thread around her wrist. "To remember to run," she said. She never took it off. It frayed, faded, but she kept it. If I forget why I tied it, she whispered. That means it worked. The smith sharpened a dozen nails and buried them. So the land remembers steel. He didn't mark the spot. Memory lives underground too, he said. The earth rusted them gently like a soft refusal. A man practiced whistling bird songs. So they think I belong, he said. He got good. Birds answered. One morning, a real warbler perched on his shoulder. He cried without sound. The healer left chalk signs on doorposts. A circle, a dot, a line. Old protections, she said, the kind that need no belief to work. Rain washed some away, but the feeling remained. A woman sat by the fire weaving reeds. For baskets, she said, but they were too small to hold anything. For carrying hope, she smiled. When asked how much they carried, she replied, enough for a day. A boy made a song from kitchen sounds, spoon-tapping bowl, knife on crust, kettle steam. This is peace music, he said. War has no rhythm like this. People hummed it as they worked, quiet concerts of survival. The priest stood barefoot in the field. To feel the same dirt we'll return to, he said. He stayed for hours. Birds landed nearby. The wind tangled his robe. When he left, the grass stood straighter. A girl named her shadow. Maris, she said, so I'm never alone. She talked to it before bed. If they come, she whispered, stay big. Her shadow stretched wide against the candlelight. The blacksmith buried a bell. So we don't ring it by accident, she said. Sound calls attention. The hole was deep, the silence after deeper. Still people heard it ring in dreams. A woman planted beans in a spiral. So they confuse the hungry, she joked. You get lost before you get fed. But the beans grew tall, proud, protective. A green wall around nothing and everything. The healer drew circles in flour on her table each morning. So the day begins with meaning, she said. When asked what they meant, she replied, whatever you need. That night, thunder came again, closer, heavier, not from the sky but from thought, from memory, from the weight of waiting. No one spoke of it. They just held their breath and hoped not to be noticed. The war has ended, but its shape remains, etched into habit, grief, silence. This part reflects on healing, memory, and the quiet reconstruction of life. The woman who had screamed each morning woke in silence. Her husband asked, "No cry today?" She smiled, soft and cracked. Not today. A boy opened the cellar door where they once hid. He stepped inside, sat in the dark, and whispered, "Thank you," then closed it gently. The healer dug up the nightshade. "Not needed now," she said. She planted rosemary in its place. Memory instead of mercy. A man pulled down the boards from his windows. "Let the day judge me," he said. "I've lived enough nights." A girl planted her doll under the tree. "So it can grow up now," she said. A single daisy bloomed nearby. The priest's robes were sewn back together by hand, each stitch an act of reverence. They would not forget him, but he would not be their last voice. A woman wrote names on parchment, names of the living, of those who stayed, those who came back, and those who built again. The baker gave free bread, no charge, no reason. "I remember hunger," he said. "I'd rather forget it from the other side." The boy who blinked slowly no longer needed to. He kept his eyes wide, even when it burned. "I want to see everything now." A couple remarried, same people, same vows, different time. "We survived," they said. "Let's promise again, just in case." The well was scrubbed until it shone. A bucket lowered, lifted. The water tasted like morning after long sleep. Children played war games in the field. Their parents watched, worried, but said nothing. Better to play it than to live it. A woman sang as she sewed. Her voice cracked, but no one corrected her. Every broken note was honest. The field where blood was spilled now grew onions. The scent was strong, sharp, living. Something always grows back, the farmer said. A boy buried the spoon he'd hidden for months. We eat out loud now, he whispered. No more silence meals. The dog's grave got a marker, just a stone. No name. But a small stick was laid beside it every day by the boy who never cried. The carpenter's floorboard bed became a box for seed. Life hid there once, he said. Now let life grow. The mirror in the chapel reflected only light now. The candle beside it burned low. Not in mourning, but peace. A man recited every name of the dead as he walked the village. Not loud, not sad, just present. To keep them walking too, he said. A woman folded away her wartime clothes, not to forget, but to hang them gently, like one stores thunder for another storm. A girl painted her fingernails with crushed berries. Because I can, she said, and laughed like it was a rebellion. The barn, once a hiding place, now housed goats again. Their bleating was music, discordant and sacred. A boy traced the cracks in his wall and smiled. It didn't fall, he said. Neither did I. That night, someone rang the chapel bell. Just once, no summons, no warning, just a note to say, we're still here. The sound echoed through the hills and didn't return empty. A child planted wildflowers by the chapel steps. For the ones who never came back, she said. The petals shone softly in the morning light. A man repaired his father's plough. The wood was cracked but strong. We'll sow again, he whispered, even if it takes years. A woman kept a jar of ashes on her mantle. So grief has a place, she said, but it doesn't live here. The healer smiled when a flower bloomed in her garden. Life finds a way, she said, even in broken soil. A boy drew pictures of stars on the barn door. So hope can land anywhere, he said. The drawings faded, but hope stayed. The priest's robes were folded with care. A new voice would come, but his lessons lived on in silence. A girl tied ribbons to the old oak. So the wind remembers joy, she said. The ribbons fluttered, a soft song. A man built a bench by the well. For those who come to rest, he said. The bench grew worn with stories. The baker shared his last loaf with a traveller. For the road, he said, and the journey ahead. Children chased shadows in the fields, their laughter rising like a prayer. A woman burned the letters she'd saved. They held pain, she said. Now they're smoke. The blacksmith forged a new horseshoe, shining bright. For good luck, she said. A boy whispered names to the river. The water carried them away, soft and endless. A girl pressed flowers between pages. So beauty never leaves, she said. A man walked the village at dawn, greeting each door. We're still here, he said. The healer planted herbs for healing, for hope, for remembrance. A child built a stone circle. For protection, she said. The stones stood firm. The woman's laughter returned, soft and unexpected. A man carved a small cross and left it on the chapel altar. For peace, he said. The last candle burned low. The night held its breath. The war had left, but its story remained, in wounds, in whispers, in the slow, steady beating of lives mending, and in the quiet courage to begin again. And now the fire has burned low, the war has passed, and the village, once shaken, sleeps again. You've walked alongside them, the farmers, the mothers, the children, the forgotten, not heroes by name, but heroes in memory. If you're still with us, thank you for staying, for listening, for remembering what history too often forgets. Was there a moment that stayed with you? A sound? A face? Tell us in the comments. We read them all. Everyone feels like another soul added to this quiet world. And if this story brought you peace, or even rest, we hope you'll return again. There are more stories to tell, more quiet hours to share. So sleep well, or simply stay still a little longer. The village remains, and so do you.